with Data for Justice, Alisia McClain.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you everyone for being here. I think it might be a good idea to just start with everybody going around and saying your name and what organization you are from. And let's see, you want to start with Grace?
Hi everyone, I'm Grace Simmerl. I'm the Chief of Civic Innovation and Technology for Louisville Metro Government.
Thank you, Grace. Kent?
Kent Euler, and at the moment I'm on sabbatical, but I'm working with the Bingham Fellows and be talking about Bingham Fellows and digital inclusion.
Thank you. How about Ken? Ken Dickin?
Oh, yes, sorry, I dozed off. Retired and angel investor.
You say retired senator?
No, I would never claim that. No, I am retired from technology. I'm an angel investor and a serial entrepreneur.
Awesome, thank you. Dr. Price?
Hi, yes, Kishkumi Price. I'm the Director of Ed Policy and Programming with the Louisville Urban League.
Thank you. Aaron?
Aaron Miller with the Leadership Louisville Center. I'm the Director of Community Development.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, everyone. Michelle Pennix, owner and founder of Principled Pennix Educational Consultancy.
Thank you. Nate Kratzer?
Nate Kratzer. I'm one of the data scientists at the Greater Louisville Project.
Thank you. Ed? Ed Blaney?
Hey, I'm Ed Blaney. I'm the Civic Technology Manager for Louisville Metro.
Thank you. Michael Gritton?
Hey, Alicia. Michael Gritton, Executive Director of Kentuckiana Works, the Workforce Development Board and Agency for Louisville and the 6 counties around it.
Hey, Michael. Thank you. Allie?
I'm Allie Goldberg. My company's Aristify, but I also work with the Greater Louisville Project.
And Marty?
Hi, Marty Polio, Superintendent, JCPS.
Thank you, Marty. Dave?
Dave Christopher, Executive Director and founder of AMPT, the Academy of Music Production, Education, and Development.
Thank you. And someone from the Library Foundation?
Hi, I'm Chandra Gordon. I'm the Executive Director of the Library Foundation.
Thank you. Harrison? Kirby?
Hey, I'm Harrison Kirby. I'm also a data scientist at the Greater Louisville Project.
Thank you. Dan Farrell or Farrell?
Hi, I'm Dan Farrell. I'm the Director of Special Programs at the Louisville Metro Housing Authority.
Thank you, Dan. Marshall Anderson?
I'm Marshall Anderson. I'm the Director of Information Technology for New Directions Housing Corporation.
Thank you, Marshall. Ellen?
Hi, Ellen Cole. I'm the Director of State Government Affairs for Charter Spectrum.
All right. Mary Gwen Wheeler?
Hi, Mary Gwen Wheeler with 55,000 Degrees.
Thank you. Ricky?
Hi, I'm Rikai Steed. I'm the Community Coordinator for Code Louisville.
Thank you. Dave? Mattingly?
Almost jumped in on Ant. I didn't realize you have 2 Daves. Dave Mattingly, Data Commando.
Dave, we didn't quite hear that. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Dave Mattingly, Data Commando at Baptist Health.
Data Commando. Okay. Mean Sun?
Mean Sun, I'm with Bingham Fellows 2020, and I'm working on digital inclusion.
Thank you. Jasleen?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jasleen Sethi with Metro United Way, Director of the United Community Initiative.
Thank you. Chester Hicks?
Hi, I'm Chester Hicks. I'm a project manager with the Louisville Downtown Partnership.
Thank you. I think Ricky, did I already introduce you?
No, Ricky Santiago, Digital Inclusion Manager for the Office for Civic Innovation.
Thank you, Ricky. Jade?
Hello, I am Jade Brown. I'm a project management intern for the Louisville Future Work Initiative.
Thank you. Let's see, where am I? Bill?
I am the mayor of the city of Jeffersontown, and also with me in Kent with the Bingham Fellows on solving the digital divide.
Thank you. Jess?
Hi, I'm Jess Metzmeyer, Assistant Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Bellarmine.
Thank you. And I just lost my screen. Here we go. All right. Ryder.
Ryder Rodriguez, Director of Sector Strategies for Kentucky and It Works.
Okay. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and get started and start with some questions. I'd like to start with JCPS. So Dr. Polio, if you could just tell us where is JCPS with the digital divide? What's being done, and what do you see that needs to be done in the future?
Yeah, good question, Alisia. So I think one thing we've learned, we've undervalued a little bit the digital divide prior to COVID-19. And so what I think this has done, if we take any positives from what has happened, it will be that, first of all, I think we have an opportunity to do school differently once we come out of COVID-19, and really shining a light on that digital divide in our community. So we clearly see those same numbers that about 30% of our students don't have access. Many of them have access to phone internet, as was talked about earlier, but it's not the same in a learning environment unless a child has a laptop, a device, and high-speed connectivity. So it has really amplified itself during NTI, but I think the long-term outcome of this is we can change education if we bridge the digital divide. So we have given out in this, I divided into two things, short-term and long-term answers. We have essentially taken on the short-term, which was giving out 60,000 Chromebooks and about 12,000 hotspots at this point for families to use, and now giving out multiple in households. But we know that's only a short-term answer to bridge the digital divide. 1 year from now, we will have the same problem because it is not sustainable to keep giving these hotspots to students. So I think as a community, if we want to move forward in education and supports for kids, I honestly believe what we found is that when kids miss school now, we have a new way of providing supports, plugging kids actually into the classroom from home. Interventions, parent-teacher conferences, supports for kids can all come from a distance if we have the digital divide. So, or if we break that digital divide. So I think it's going to be critical, and I think every city across America is going to wrestle with the solution over the next few years.
Thank you, Dr. Polio, and thank you for being here. I wanted to switch to, from the community perspective, Dr. Price, can you kind of shed some light? I know you work with education with the Urban League, and can you sort of shed your perspective, the Urban League's perspective, on the digital divide as it exists in our community?
Absolutely. Yeah, so a lot of the concerns around the digital divide is that it's been such a long-standing issue that even though a lot of our students who are JCPS students have received a Chromebook and possibly a hotspot, there's still issues with being able to navigate properly, and also having the other wraparound supports needed in order to effectively use the devices. So this is not just, I guess, an issue that would come up with someone who's not familiar with using technology, because a lot of our students had the opportunity to be engaged in schools, but it's more so about the families and community partners that are trying to assist students during this period of time, and understanding that Kentucky is one of the, or actually the highest in the nation for students who are living with relatives or, other relatives than their parents, so grandparents and others, trying to assist them with these new devices and a new way of engaging in school is difficult. And so we have had parents and grandparents and others to reach out about how they can be connected, which of course we circle them back to JCPS, but try to provide some of that support in real time. And I'm glad that Dave Christopher with AMP will be able to share a little bit about how they are helping to mitigate those issues. But that's one of our huge concerns. And then along with that, the hotspots for some, specifically our community partners, it only allows for a certain amount of students to be engaged with that one hotspot before it will kick everybody off. There's a threshold. And so we've gotten some complaints or concerns around that, and really looking for ways to have some better solutions for what this may end up being more of a long-term support system in place, with a lot of our students learning at the community learning hubs. And I know Michelle will speak to some of that, but a lot of this for us is really about the wraparound supports that are needed. We can't just give a device and give a hotspot and think everything's good, especially when we have these other issues that come up. If you already have connectivity through an internet service provider, but then given that we're in a pandemic, you're not able to pay for that service. And then all of a sudden you are now in need of a hotspot or some other way of getting your child connected. So we need to really work on the communication loop and tightening that up so that we're getting these resources to families when we have them, even though they are short-term solutions now. We're really hoping that we can have some policy change to really move the needle in gaining some long-term solutions.
Thank you, Dr. Price. And I wanted to touch on, you talked about wraparound services, and I think AMPT does a tremendous job of addressing the need for wraparound services, that education is not just, and not to say that anyone else doesn't, but I want to go to Dave to talk about what do you see, Dave, as potential solutions to provide those wraparound services so that people can get the technology education that would help to move them forward? Where do you see from your perspective as Executive Director of AMPT?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm a firm believer that the solution is in the community that we serve. And so we need to first realize that the answers are there. And if we, like I tell people, AMPT is just a resource provider. We provide people resources to do the things that we know that they can already do. So one of the things we just most recently did was through the partnership with JCPS and Humana and Brown-Forman, was we took 13 of our students that had gone through our tech training program, and they are now employed as IT professionals providing tech support, NTI tech support for the community. Those folks in that we hired are all people from the community. So with the training that we provided them, with the opportunity we provided them, they will be the ones answering the phone, providing the support. And the reason that that's important is because when you make that phone call and somebody that looks like you, or somebody that's going through some of the similar things that you're going through picks up that phone, there's an immediate connection that makes it so much easier to learn. And that's something that we have to really get to and understand, that we want to stand on the outside and tell people how to fix their problems and how to do what they need to do, when actually we need to be just trying to put them in a position to do it for themselves, to give them the resources to do it. So that's one of the things. And then the other part of what we're doing is, what we've been doing is trying to provide technology training at a very basic level, and assuming that everybody starts from zero. The ability to create an email, the ability to create a document and share that document with somebody. Those are things that we completely forget that people need, especially even beyond NTI, even beyond the issue with JCPS. We're talking about a whole community of people that are digitally disconnected, and because of that, the problems is compound on each other. So, like as kids said, and spoke about earlier, is we're about looking at all of the issues, the entire family, and saying, what do we do to empower the family? Because there's a saying that says, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man a fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. Well, I push back against that a little bit, because what if the man has no fishing pole? And so we have to also provide that fishing pole and the things they need once we teach them. So I think just taking that holistic approach is the best way to go. And we've had great success. And as long as we have great partners like we do on this call, and folks, everybody working together, realizing that these folks are capable, the people that we're trying to help are capable, and they can do what they need to do, just let them do it and get out of the way.
Thank you, Dave. I love what you said about the solution can be found in the community that they serve, and talking also about family. On that note, Michelle, I want to switch to you, Michelle Pennix. Can you talk about just some solutions that you see, what's being done now, and what obstacles exist, especially as they pertain to families?
Thank you. I think Dave kind of hit on it, and so did Kish, as they talked about wraparound. There's no greater wraparound than the parent and the grandparent that is supporting the children during NTI. But even more than that, as Dave said, NTI will be over. As Dr. Polio said the same, NTI will be over. And when it is, we're left with roughly about 20,000 grandparents in our community who are the primary caretakers for their grandchildren. And out of that number, most are over the age of 50, and 75% of them have reported not feeling comfortable with technology at all. 75% of our community over the age of 50 who are caretakers for their children, grandchildren, report not feeling comfortable with technology, needing help just setting up. And 30% of those have never used a computer at all, have no access, have never touched a computer. And those are the numbers we really want to look at. How can we change? And one of the ways that we can do that is by getting to the root of where that comes from. Not only is access a great problem for many of them, but just no interest is also something that many of them find. And I think everybody on this call who's ever worked with anybody over the age of 50, 60, maybe even 70, as I had with my own mom, who completely turned away the computer or a cell phone even every time I tried to hand it to her. It's not necessary, I don't need it, I can move on, I can figure it out, I can call somebody. So we want to find ways to connect with them. Also, the design of technology. Remember the phones that came out a few years ago that were easy for senior citizens to use? Well, many senior citizens in our community, many families are still hesitant about breaking the computer. That is a real fear for some older people in our community. And those people are the ones that are assisting their children. But more than that, you cannot request further information for a service or a product in our community without being told, for more information, go to blank.com. If there is an 800 number, that 800 number will send you to blank.com or ask you to go there. So our parents, our grandparents do not have access to some of the important information they need. We talk about telehealth. We talk about conducting business. We talk about reaching out and interacting with the community. For the past 6 months, technology has kept everyone on here connected to each other and to the outside world. Without that, the isolation and loneliness develops in many of our older citizens, and it's imperative that we do something to bridge that gap. And finally, on that same note, when we talk about solutions, we're talking about, as Dave said with AMP, we've got to provide training and support. And when you're talking about people over the age of 50, 60, you're talking about very often a one-to-one connection. In my local church, we just began Zoom services on Sundays back in March. And it is just this week that our oldest member, God love her, at the age of 79, was able to figure out how to put her face in the screen. And that was after 3 one-hour sessions with her over 6 months. So we've still got some work to do, but with the solutions being offered so far, I think we can get there.
Thank you, Michelle. And I appreciate what you said about the connectivity that technology can provide. And also that if the technology is made relevant to our communities, then the likelihood of using it, creating in it, leading in it, obviously increases exponentially. You also talked about the importance of access. So with that in mind and thinking about broadband, thinking about Wi-Fi, high-speed Wi-Fi access, I want to zoom out a little bit and go to Grace Simrall. And Grace, can you talk to us a little bit about, from a city perspective, where are we? What can we do about broadband access?
Thank you so much, Alicia. Before I do that, I just want to say how appreciative I am of all the speakers who have spoken ahead of me. What you hear in these conversations is that solving the digital divide will take what we call a three-legged stool approach. It's not enough to make sure people have a high-speed internet connection. It's not enough for people to have a device that is more than a smartphone. It's going to take real community effort around making sure that people have the right skills to take full advantage of it. So I want to stress that. Connectivity, hardware, skills. The next point I want to make is that the digital divide cuts across demographics in our community. So you're already hearing about the impact it's having on students for NTI, but Michelle clearly articulated how it affects seniors and how it cuts them off from their friends and family and their community, how they're not able to fully take advantage of telehealth. It cuts off people, I see Michael Gritton's on here, from meaningful, well-paying work. How are you going to work from home if you don't have an ultra high-speed internet connection? And again, the skills and the device to take full advantage of it. So the city has definitely studied this deeply. We've shared our data. I'm so glad that GLP is also sharing additional data. If you think of it as a data refresh, we'll be releasing a larger report that lays out the very specific challenges we have in Louisville. I will say it's not just a Louisville problem. This is a problem that strikes across our country, both urban and rural. There really is no part of our country that isn't struck by the digital divide. And in fact, based on global studies, the US as a whole is falling behind. So we won't be the only ones trying to solve this, but we do believe that this is, we're at a point, thanks to COVID-19, bearing sharp relief to the problem, to take a big leap forward in what we do about it. Now, one of the big challenges is around affordability in our community. We do have 2 low-cost internet plans that are available. A lot of people don't know about them. And a lot of people have also shared with us that even at their very low cost, they are still unattainable for them because they have to meet their basic needs first. And that means a roof over their heads and food on the table. And they just don't have enough left over, even for those low-cost plans. We're also told by people in our community that it doesn't matter how much money they don't have access to high-speed internet options. And so looking at these problems, I think as a community, we understand the problem. What are we going to do about it? Should we maybe focus on students first? Or do we want to focus on seniors or people who are underemployed and unemployed? By defining the scope of what we're dealing with, that helps us, again, hone in on the kind of next step of longer term solutions. Do we want to make sure that we do further build outs of the network? And who operates that? Is that something that we as a community want to see additional internet service provider options in our community? Do we want to make sure that we have, let's say, it treated like a utility? These are questions that we need to answer as a community that really have less to do with studying the problem again, as it does with what kind of internet service future we want in Louisville.
Thank you, Gary. And I think it's important that you hit on, access to high-speed internet and to basically the access to technology is an issue for all of us. It will buoy our economy in total, the more people who have access to it. And I think a lot of times we think of these issues philanthropically, and in some ways we should think of it holistically and almost selfishly. From an economic standpoint, the entire economy serves to benefit when everybody has access to high-speed internet and to devices where they can connect. On that note, where Grace left us with what should we do about it, and that it is an economic issue, Kent, I wanted to turn to you here representing the Bingham Fellows Project. If you can tell us a little bit about what the Bingham Fellows is thinking about the project, or thinking in terms of the digital divide, and where you see us going from here.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. And thanks, Ben, and the people at GLP for convening this call. Just first, a little bit about Bingham Fellows. For those that aren't familiar, it's an annual program run by Leadership Louisville. I see some of the Bingham Fellows on the call here, as well as Aaron from Leadership Louisville Center. It's a year-long program, and typically it studies a community issue. In this case, our issue that we were assigned was how do we make Louisville a top-tier city, which is the background you see there. And the group, of course, was affected because of COVID and was not able to meet in person as much as they would normally do. But we are carrying on in a virtual sense. Typically, they break into teams, and the teams attack specific problems. In our case, that has happened. So out of the 50 or so people in the Bingham Fellows class, there are 4 project teams. One of the teams that I'm representing is on digital inclusion. And for all the reasons that have been laid out by all the speakers prior to me, there is a need. It's very apparent. It's economic, it's social, it's health, it's educational, it's all of these things. And particularly in the lens of racial equity, it is a really, really important area because so many of the people that aren't participating are in the minority community. So we have 11 people on our team. We've broken into 3 subgroups. One of them is on asset mapping, community assessment, and community help desk. Those are specific things that need to be done. One of them is on storytelling and awareness. So Grace referred to the low-cost plans, but many people don't even know about those low-cost plans. And then the third group is on coalition building. So one of the things we noticed is that in Louisville, unlike many other cities, there is no recognized single coalition that is focused on this project. There's a lot of people that are working on it, as we've heard, but they're not getting together on a regular basis like on this call or otherwise to concentrate and have a unified voice around digital inclusion. And that means making a community priority with the electeds and others, raising community awareness so people even know that it's a problem, raising money, putting pressure on some of the suppliers like Spectrum and ATT maybe to have additional offerings or lower the cost of those offerings, building support and other things that are specific. So one of the things we're doing is trying to form a coalition of folks interested in digital inclusion. We're following the model of the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, which is a thing. They have a playbook actually on how to put together a coalition. They've done it in other cities. We've spoken to many other cities. We've also spoken to a lot of the stakeholders that are here to make sure we're not stepping on toes or duplicating efforts. So Metro is very interested in us working on this, JCPS, GLI, and many others that we've spoken with. So the idea is to first pull together a small core group. That meeting is actually, the invitation is ready to go out. That's about a dozen stakeholders who have a high stake. You think like JCPS or GLI or United Way, they have a very high stake, and that's not totally inclusive. But the core group, we hope to have a meeting on the 21st of this month, get together, and then use that to build out to a much larger coalition that is very inclusive and very focused, perhaps has staffing attached to it, and will eventually reside in some other entity. It won't reside in Leadership Louisville Center or Bingham Fellows. That's not the way these things typically do. It'll land inside an agency or an entity to make sure that it is sustainable for the long term. So that's what the coalition is. We also are looking to have a convening project because we realize that, you know, getting together to talk is important, but you got to have something to do and act upon. So there's several groups within our group that are looking at specific activities that are contributory. For instance, a winter help type program. You know, with LG&E, you can get money on your bill, and that goes to pay for folks that can't afford heat and air heat. Well, similarly for broadband, we've already had some discussions with the providers about that. Community help desk is another idea. We've already started discussions with one of our tech providers about providing volunteers for community help desk. And then a fund to help fund some of these activities. So that's what's going on with Bingham Fellows. A lot going on, and our hope is that following on this call and others, everybody who's interested will express interest and become part of the coalition.
Thank you, Kent. Appreciate that. I like that you're talking about like talking is great, right? And a lot of us have said this before, like, what are we actually going to do? So at this point, we're going to go ahead and take questions from those who were, thank you to all of the speakers, and we're going to take questions. You can place them, put them in the chat. Questions for the group. Kent, I specifically wanted to ask, I have this idea around winter help is good, I think, but it's $10 and it goes to someplace, you know, I'm sure it's helping someone, right? But I propose the TOMS model where, like, if I get internet access, I have the opportunity to provide internet access specifically for another family, I don't know, located in my favorite part, you know, located in the South End or located in the West End, whatever, you know, that I think might be a really big impact. I think, you know, there's a certain group of people that really respond to, and I myself one of them, I respond more to, like, oh, I'm specifically paying for a family's internet than I would just, like, you know, hey, let me put, you know, $15 towards somebody's internet. So just something to consider. Michael, I know you're not on the, Michael Gritton, I know you're not on the speaker list, but did you want to say anything about the digital divide and how you see it affecting workforce development? I know I'm kind of throwing you. I always do this, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, it's just another part of the problem that everybody's aware of. You can't get many jobs these days without having those sort of digital skills. You can't apply for many jobs without being able to do it online. We have a lot of people who used to come into the physical career centers who needed help accessing a computer or helping to be able to apply for a job online. So whether it's the all three legs of the stool that were mentioned before is still part of the challenge that people have that keeps them from either getting a job, moving up in a job, or oftentimes accessing training, particularly in COVID, Alisia. You know, a lot of the training we're offering now is through the computer. The manufacturing training that we're doing is being done through Zoom rather than in person. The construction is still a mix, but you know, it is holding people back in that category, just like it does it's holding them back in the JCPS category of educating their kids. It's holding them back in health. You know, Kent mentioned it before. So I think we're just another element where we see the fallout, we see the gap, we see the racial equity impact, where we know it's more disproportionately African-American families that are affected by this. But you know, you wander to try to find, like, funding streams to be able to address it or responsibility to address it, and we don't quite know whose job it is. And again, I get Grace is describing that we've all got to sort of tackle it, but at the end of the day, that doesn't seem to be getting us where we need to go. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, Michael, I'm glad you said that about all of us tackling, and it doesn't seem to be getting us where to go. Is there, and I'll just sort of open this up to the group, are there other cities or states or even countries where this problem has actually been tackled and has been solved? I don't know if, Grace, you have like something that the city can compare to, like, has anyone actually done this and done this successfully?
Well, not just, there are plenty of examples, but what I want to stress is that these different examples reflect different business models on how you approach solving the problem. And that's, again, one of those very core fundamental philosophical questions we need to answer as a community. So let's take Chattanooga, for example. The Edison Power Board, which is municipally owned, applied for government funds to upgrade their electrical grid for smart grid. And as part of that, they were able to roll out fiber to all of their households. Now, that's a municipally owned internet service. Now, the pros are that it's very cheap. In fact, the revenues that they use to, from the internet service help subsidize electrical bills for the residents. But you do have to ask yourself as a community, how comfortable are you having the government light your internet? And I think everyone on this call is aware that we've certainly had more trust in government in the past than even recently. And so these are questions that we should ask as a community. Is this something that we would want to embrace, something that's municipally owned, or do we want to do a hybrid model where the the city owns the middle mile. Think of this as the highways, but the private, connections to people's homes are operated by private companies. Or do we just want to spur private competition in our market? I mean, we've seen this over and over again in cities. When there are more options, we get faster speeds, lower prices, and better customer service. I can't answer that for us. There really is no one person who can. I think we need to ask these questions of ourselves and decide how we want to proceed.
Thank you, Grace. I see that we have Ellen, I believe, on here. And again, I'm putting people on the spot from Charter Spectrum.
Yes.
Yeah, could you weigh in?
I would be happy to, and you'll have to forgive me. I got pulled off the first part of this call, but with something else. So I've just only been able to join in the last 5 or 10 minutes. But so forgive me if I'm repeating anything that came at the first part. But so let me ask you this: Has Hank from AT&T, have you all given any conversation to the low-cost products that both of our companies have for low-income folks? Have you all guys already talked about that?
Not yet.
Okay. Hey, let me introduce myself. This is Hank Monjo with AT&T. I was not called on during the introductions earlier, but I would like everyone to know I'm on the line. Thank you.
Okay. So and Hank can tell about his deal. AT&T has a fantastic product for $10 a month. Charter Spectrum has something called Spectrum Internet Assist for $17.99 a month, and it is available to any families who are on the school lunch program, and also to senior citizens who are on SSI. So, from my viewpoint, and you might want to give Hank a chance to weigh in as well, Louisville is blessed with a really, really robust network that private capital has built. So the network is here. Both of our companies have provided a very, very low cost product. So it seems to me the fastest way to get from point A to point B, where we have broader adoption of internet, is helping people with that $10 or $20 a month that they need to plug into AT&T's product or ours. And so what does that look like? Does that look like a voucher program possibly? When we've talked about this issue before, if you look at the federal government's approach to other poverty issues, for housing insecurity, we have Section 8 to help people pay for housing. For food insecurity issues, we have supplements that help people pay for food. And, where this discussion might land is with some sort of, federal voucher program, $10-20 a month, so that families can access these low cost products like AT&T and Charter have.
Thank you, Ellen. And Hank, trust me, it was not personal. It was just an issue of organization on the moderator's part. We are not partial to Charter Spectrum, although my husband does work there. But that was just like.
Aha! Now we see what's going on. Ellen, you've got people everywhere. I swear.
That's my plant, Hank. No, listen. Hank and I are absolutely on the same page on this issue. Hank, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ellen. And let me agree that we are very much on the same page with this issue. And Ellen and I have jointly had conversations with a number of you in recent weeks on this. Ellen is a hard act to follow because I can't help but echo many of the points she's made. I will just note a couple things really quickly. 3 things really quickly. First of all, we always welcome opportunities to help get the word out about the Access from AT&T program. And of course, Spectrum has a wonderful program as well. So we're always happy to help provide information and direct people to that resource. Also, just want to note that, there's a lot to celebrate about internet access in the Louisville metro area. AT&T alone is putting almost $100 million a year into Jefferson County in terms of modernizing our wireline and our wireless networks. So a tremendous spend, illustrating the tremendous challenges, but we're putting our money where our mouth is in that regard. And secondly, I'd like to note that AT&T fiber broadband is currently available already to almost half the living units in Jefferson County. Almost half the living units in our community can already subscribe to fiber from a standpoint of having it available. And we're continuing that build. And I'm excited about the continuation plans I'm seeing. So there's a lot to celebrate when it comes to the internet landscape in Louisville as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Hank, and thank you, Ellen. Hank, just one more thing. Can you talk about the speeds that are available for the $10 per month plan? And Ellen, can you as well talk about the $17.99 a month school lunch program? What speeds are we talking about?
Ellen, ladies first.
Yes. So for our Spectrum Internet Assist, the $17.99 a month product, it's a 30 meg speed.
Okay, and Hank?
Well, I don't have the immediate details in front of me, but I would certainly encourage folks to go online and check it out. You can just go to att.com/access. And if anyone on this call needs further information for their organization or themselves, just reach out to me and I can help point you to those resources.
And one more question for the two of you, and then I'll go to the questions that are in the chat. If we were to try and set something up where people could sort of sponsor someone else's account, is that something that is a heavy lift, an easy lift, something you're open to doing, willing to do? Is there something that you would maybe willing to match? Is there a way that we could partner as a community with the internet providers to potentially pay for someone else's bill, but then also maybe increase the speeds that are provided as well on these plans?
So I think that is a really interesting idea. And I echoed what you said earlier, that it's in a lot of ways, it's almost more satisfying to know that you're taking care of a particular family, right? Rather than just throwing money into a general fund. Look, we're open to all ideas. What I would need to do is kind of talk to our billing folks to figure out the logistics of that. But we absolutely are open to considering, any good ideas like that.
Okay,
yeah, I wouldn't be able to say yes or no here on the spot to anything. Certainly, we run our billing systems at a national level, and some very heavy lifts can be involved in adjusting those. But we're certainly open to at least conversations and internal vetting of any ideas that can help address the problem. I just can't specifically say yes or no to anything today.
No, Hank, we want you to commit right here, right now, in front of
I know you do, but it's not happening. No, but we do appreciate outside the box efforts to address these issues. I mean, certainly when more people are online, the providers of internet service benefit by that as well.
Thank you. Hank and Ellen, I appreciate you leaning in and talking to us about, coming from the provider standpoint. Just some comments in the chat from Mean Son. I like the notion of treating broadband as utility. I know some cities in Florida have done it in a way that residents pay taxes on broadband infrastructure. Wondering if the city owns and operates fiber optics. Back to you, Grace.
Sure. And Ming, if you don't mind clarifying, do you mean a city in Florida or do you mean Louisville Metro? Sorry, you're on mute.
Louisville Metro.
Thank you for the question. So we do own fiber and operate it, but strictly for our own purposes. Right now we have over 100 miles of fiber optic network. It's all middle mile fiber that connects our municipal buildings, as well as other sorts of devices such as traffic lights and other sorts of devices to that fiber optic network. But that's what we strictly light the fiber for right now.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, and Grace, thank you for your response. I have another. Marshall is saying, I know the mayor's office announced the expansion of public Wi-Fi into the Russell neighborhood. Are there any plans on expanding that into other neighborhoods surrounding Russell?
While there are not specific plans, that particular plan was supported by a grant from the housing from US HUD. So, if there are other grant opportunities for us to expand public Wi-Fi, we certainly will pursue that. That said, public Wi-Fi is only a component in solving the digital divide. A lot of people aren't aware, but that does not actually mean you have internet access inside of your home. And so often that's really kind of the final mile that we've got to solve together as a community. Having public Wi-Fi in a public park or on a street corner is just not going to be enough for people to, again, meaningfully do NTI, meaningfully apply for and do telework, meaningfully have telehealth conferences and conversations with their doctors, or again, connect with loved ones. So we need to be able to make sure that people have connectivity inside their homes.
Lisa, could I give a quick comment?
Yeah.
There's like what Grace is saying, Wi-Fi is one thing that in many of the homes, particularly in the older parts of town that are brick or have wire lath in them, you can have a Wi-Fi hotspot or a router in one room and you can't, it's not usable in the next room. You know, you have to have mesh networks or something like that to service these houses. So Wi-Fi is, you know, great once it's inside your house and you have a network with inside your house. Two, the concept of scale. So many of the ideas that come up are really innovative and very clever, and they help a few people at a time. But we have over 20,000 people that need to be helped now. They're just basically, think of it, 20,000 houses without electricity and water. So, and it may be a higher number than that. I've heard as high as 50,000. So we need to focus very much on solutions at scale, which I would suggest that it's great to hear from Ellen and Hank, you know, where those private networks already exist. You know, if we can use money to leverage to those private networks to get to the 20 or 50,000 houses, that may happen more quickly. It may be assisted by things that would, you know, overlaying with a metro network. One other concept, in the next couple of years, you're also going to start seeing an emergence of new satellite-based internet access solutions. You've got Elon Musk doing it. You've got, I believe, Amazon doing it. And you know, very quickly, they're going to be another option that's coming from the sky. And we need to see, is that a viable thing also?
Excellent points, Kent. Thank you. Dr. Polio, I don't know if you're still on here, and it's okay if you're not. I just wondered if you could speak a little bit about the learning hubs that you had suggested. I've heard you suggest, if you can just tell everybody about what the learning hubs are and maybe how they would be a partial solution to access.
Yeah, well, we've had some great community partners step up and want to help us with the work to provide opportunities for kids in the neighborhood in which they reside. In small numbers to go to learning hubs, to have connectivity, to have supports, to have meals, to have adults that can assist them. And once again, in very small numbers with safe distancing taking place. So we partnered with Evolve 502, and they are what you would call the convening partner. JCPS is providing subs, meals, and some other things. And then we have various churches, community centers, nonprofits who are opening their doors for kids to support them during NTI. So it's been a great partnership to this point as we've really launched this, getting kids out into the community to get some help.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. Let's see, if 50%, Ken Dickens says, if 50% of the county is currently internet covered by AT&T and Spectrum, how long to get the remaining areas covered? Ken, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Do you mean?
And can I actually just weigh in on that? So, so Spectrum, we are, and this is largely due to the efforts of our predecessor companies, you know, Insight and Time Warner Cable, and also our investment, Charter's investment. But Spectrum we have broadband available to almost, not every, but almost every household in Jefferson County, in the, you know, probably in the high 90%. So, you know, and then you layer on AT&T's tremendous investment and plus the investment of the smaller companies. So this is the issue here is not a network deficiency. We just have a financial gap here of 10 or 20 bucks a month that we need to close for folks.
Let me revisit what I noted earlier, which may have generated this question. approximately half of the living units in Jefferson County have access to AT&T fiber broadband at this time. The build is continuing. It's taken us several years to get to where we are. And I can't give you a timeline for when or even if 100% of the homes in the county would be serviced by fiber from us. My own home is not serviced by our fiber, much to my own chagrin right now. But as Ellen said, when you layer in everything else available from our competitors, plus our 5G wireless network, which we're very proud of and has extensive reach throughout the county. As I said earlier, there is a lot to celebrate about internet access in this community as well.
Let me add to what prompted that question, if I could. Hank and Ellen both. Kent Orler brought up a good point. It's not necessarily the coverage of the network. It's getting from the line or from the fiber that's in the ground into the house, into the building. And I have been pursuing an option that said, if we could run broadband over telephone lines, most of the buildings and houses have a telephone line or an electric line already connected to it. Now, what we would do is a short term to get like the public school system ready to start doing education and monitoring of students over the broadband. If we could get that done and then let the larger carriers provide us a longer term solution, which may be coming out of the sky, as I'm also familiar with the things that are being done to kind of eliminate anything under the ground or above the ground or anything like that is just coming out of the sky. So the technology that connects whatever we have as a solution today should be upgradable technology-wise to whatever happens later. And it's got to be a minimum cost to do the upgrade. I would certainly support the city providing the overall coverage for the county and even taking it into the state. Cover the entire state with an internet service of some type that is paid for by taxes or by a small fee, and reduce the connection and the usage, the subscription usage, to the bare bone minimum, especially for the communities within the state or within the county that are a little bit on the poverty side. So it's I know it's a very complex thing, but if we have to think bigger than just getting the Wi-Fi or getting the broadband to a building, because the next wave of getting that Wi-Fi, that information from the internet, it may totally take everything that we put in place out. And that's going to be a hindering cost to every building, to every house, to every trailer that's out there. If it's just out in the world, and the point about the connection and the older people not having good technology skills, I'm blessed with worked in technology all my life. I'm soon to be 75, and what I have challenged all of the technology companies that I work for, including Humana, Kraft, Philip Morris, Aegon, I've challenged them that the solution technology-wise must be intuitively obvious. It can't be something I think somebody, Grace, I'm not sure if it was you or not, but was talking about how we need to educate everybody in the use of technology. If you have to do an education on the use of technology, then the technology is no good. I challenge any technology that comes out that has a big manual or has a big tutorial or has a 800 help desk number to call to figure out how to use the technology. I despise technology that gives me an error code 316-18 and I got to go look that up somewhere. Yeah, I agree. Nobody's going to do that. Even the younger kids coming out of school with their microwave activity and their mindset, everything's got to be done right now. I don't have time to look anything up. It's got to be intuitively obvious.
Ken, thank you so much. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're absolutely right on intuitive platforms and intuitive hardware and software and technology. We are going to have to wrap. It is 2:02. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. There are some phenomenal questions and conversations going on in the chat. I think what's important about this call is that we have everyone on this call to make this happen. We have the right people and the right groups on this call to make this happen. Just want to say a special thanks to Hank and Ellen for being here from the internet provider companies. And it sounds to me like this is something that requires further, not just conversation to Ken's point, but further action. And so we will be following up. Ben, I'm going to pass it back to you. Thank you everyone for being here. And it's been a pleasure hearing everybody speak on this very important issue.
No, and I just want to echo those thanks to both the people that we teed up and the people who stepped up when called upon by our fabulous moderator, Alisia McClain. Also a shout out to Ali Goldberg, our rock star project manager who makes these things happen. I think there's some real issues that got raised in the chat, so we're going to capture those, and I think that's going to be part of the basis of our follow-on. Kent, you mentioned that you were planning to have a community meeting. Do you want to say anything about that as we wrap?
Yeah, I just sent everybody, if you notice that it's digital in CLOusion, that's a thing there.
Oh, Lord.
But yeah, if you email to that email address your interest, then we can record it and make sure we've got lots of names of folks already, but the first meeting will be just a convening, kind of an organizing meeting, and I think we've decided who has to be at that one. But we want to get everybody in for the larger group late, probably in November. So let us know if you're interested.
Great. And then to bring us home, Dr. Kish Kumi Price.
Yes, just real quick, I did put this in the chat, but I wanted to emphasize the need for those low-cost products that are being offered by our ISPs to not come with red tape for families, so that they can still access the internet services without it being a problem with it being bundled and having those other issues. And the last point being that I'm kind of sick on my stomach right now, thinking that we are having this discussion on October 6th, and that we haven't really moved the needle. And we can say, yes, the district has, helped to respond to kids who have a need for devices right now and hotspots, but we really need more energy around getting solutions. And I don't think it's a magic wand. There's going to be one thing. We need to push all of these great ideas forward quickly. We are in the midst of a pandemic, and guys, I'm trying my best for everybody to know, to share that this is going to be beyond what we think right now if we don't respond with greater urgency. We have to respond with greater urgency right now. There's so much on the line. And I am also convinced that the reason why we haven't gotten to that place is because most of us are not impacted by this. That's why we're able to have this conversation right now, uninterrupted. Some of you could not get into this room because you didn't have a passcode and you would have been locked out. And so many of our kids are locked out. So many of our families are locked out.
I'm saying no words other than that. We're just going to end this meeting. Thank you all so much. We'll be following up afterwards. Appreciate the work that you all are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Nice job. You know, your intuition and I'm sorry, I thought we